think I'm live. I'm not very good at all this modern technology stuff, to be honest. I'm also trying to record it on my phone, so I might be able to share it elsewhere. So, good morning, WTU. For those that haven't seen me or met me before, my name is Phil Monk, and well, I'm the founder of WTU with a bit of a crazy idea that I had that cannabis is a basic human right. It's not this dangerous drug that should be enshrined in law and taken from the people. And basically, I thought it was time to try and get legal representation for our human rights. I'll go more into that in a minute because we have had a list. I just need a sip of water, sorry. Like I say, I'm not very good at all this live feed business. So, yeah, I had a response from a solicitor. I've written to maybe 50. There's probably a lot more out there. But I was waiting for a lot to come back. Most came back negative. One came back and said, yes, you do possibly have a case, a very narrow case for medicinal basis only. For one person, not a class action of thousands against the government, just one sole person. With one sole condition for a little medical thing, and I can't have any of that, I'm sorry, because to be fair, it's not the case. I'll talk more about why it's not the case in a minute. My belief is everyone should be able to access cannabis. Humans have co-evolved with cannabis. We require it to balance our health. That's what homeostasis is. And everyone should be able to access it. There shouldn't be this thing about the law saying, oh, good morning, everybody. If I reply to any of that, I won't think of any of that. I'll reply to all of your message afterwards. Keep putting any questions in, any comments, and I'll get back to you once I finish the feed. If I do all that, I won't tell you any of this. So keep asking, and I'll keep talking, and we'll catch up with that after. So yeah, I'm not one of these people that's saying, oh, let's have medicinal cannabis, because in my mind, medicinal cannabis doesn't exist. All we have is nutritional cannabis. That's that, really. It has profound health benefits for regulating homeostasis. So, as you've all tuned in today, really you're all excited to find out how yesterday went. I've got to say, I was kind of overwhelmed by yesterday because I think it's 4 weeks ago today, or the date today, I was stood in the freezing cold with several hundred people with the UPA and my own little pink banner saying, you know, Genesis 1:29, God gave humans, what is it? God gave all seed-bearing plants to mankind for food and nutrition, so we have our own right to grow our own herb. And I met with some good people there, really connected with some good souls, and I'm really grateful to the universe or God or whoever you believe in for bringing us together. You know who you are. So 4 months later, I'm suddenly sat, eventually, after much chaos, in a conference room. At least sort of engaging with some people that may have some political say, which is a bit better than just shouting at them from the cold outside. So, how did that happen? I don't know. Like everything, I never set out to make WTU. We, the Undersigned, was never, you know, the idea crossed my mind 2 years ago to do exactly what I'm doing, and I was in another group at the time, and I put the idea forward, and it was kind of shot down as it wouldn't work, and they had good reasons, really. You know, the legal system's corrupt, costs a lot of money. Sorry, the legal system is complicated, costs a lot of money, and it would take a lot of time. So, okay, that idea never happened. But now suddenly, I suggest it to people, over 3,000 people all in all, are now following and agreeing with WTU on the basic premise that cannabis is a human right. In fact, the freedom of consciousness is a human right. We should be able to explore our mind as we please, in whatever way we choose, so long as we're not harming another individual. We should be able to express our identity however we please, so long as we're not harming an individual. So if that means walking around with cannabis things on our clothes, we shouldn't be arrested by the police just because we've got cannabis things on our clothes. Otherwise, we're not allowed to express our identity. How many people have to hide the fact they use cannabis? They have to live in the shadows. You know, I did it for years, actually, until my health depended on it. I thought I was just a pothead cannabis user. Don't know if that's covering my microphone. I hope you can all hear me. I thought I was just a pothead, actually. Since I was 16, I started using cannabis. I've used it every day of my life since then, virtually, apart from 6 months when I abstained because society made me feel so guilty and so bad for using cannabis. And I tried to use what they told me I should use and what I was allowed to use, which is alcohol, which made me very, very ill. During this time, what can I say? I did every job. I've had over like 40 different types of jobs, different trades. I was a man that said yes to any job that came his way. And then suddenly my body, all this cartilage stuff happens to me, so my body doesn't work properly. So I can't actually do physical jobs, and I get signed off, and I think, well, what the hell am I going to do? So I became a teacher. Went to uni, got a PGCE, became a literacy teacher, a Spanish teacher, a numeracy teacher, an ESOL teacher. And I used cannabis the entire time. All the time I studied, I used cannabis. All the time, well, not while I taught, I didn't use it while I was teaching, but when I got home after teaching, I'd had my tea with my kids and whatnot, and I would use cannabis. I thought it was my recreational drug then. And I don't like alcohol. It makes me poorly. It gives me bad stomach, a bad head. It makes me feel like shit in the morning. I now know why. It's because it's a toxic substance to the human body. But in teaching, it was like, yeah, have a drink. Go home, Ofsted. Oh, have a drink when you get home. That'll help you cope with the stress. But it doesn't actually. It makes you come in more stressed the next day because you haven't rested, you haven't relaxed, and you haven't had restorative sleep, and you haven't even had the ability to reflect upon the previous day's events in order to learn from them to move forward for the next day. You wake up feeling like a bag of shit with a hair like a sore bed. No, head like a sore bear. And you go in ranting and raving at everyone. Whereas the little cannabis consumer, right, naughty boy that everyone talks bad about, oh, they use cannabis, they're so bad, I got to sit there like a secret little boy, not tell anyone I'm using cannabis. I go home and I use my cannabis. I sit there and mark people's work. I reflect on the day, what happened, how did it go, what did I do, how could I improve it? And I did that throughout all my life. When I was studying, I'd come home and write my essays and have a smoke and write my essays, and they'd be like A stars, full marks. Well, my alcohol friends would sit there and tell me how they got drunk, puked up in the street, shagged someone in an alley, and couldn't remember who it was, and not now sure if they might be pregnant. And I'm thinking, and you've just slagged off someone for smoking cannabis? Wow, that's terrible. So I had to keep my mouth shut because I was scared I'd get thrown out of university at this point on my PGCE. So I had to keep my mouth shut about the fact I used cannabis. And I kept it secret until my health depended on it. I had lots of things happen. I injured a hip basically, and then it spiraled from there. It turns out I've got chronic myofascial pain from joint hypermobility syndrome. I've also got bilateral ulnar impaction syndrome because my arms grew too long from too much mountain biking and I had to have them shortened. I got PTSD because of people who should have looked after me when I was a child, did things that actually messed my head up, and it took a lot of years to recover. And cannabis has got me through all of that. And some good people, actually. I've met some very good people, and they have saved me. Cannabis has saved me. I'm still here today because of cannabis and because of these people. And so I'm rambling. Shit, how did we get into Parliament? I had a random message. I was Kelly O'Neill. I love you, Kelly O'Neill, like I love many people. You messaged me and said, Phil, you're putting too much into WTU. I want you to come down to Cornwall and have a break. And I said, you're right, it's absolutely wrecking me. My body's killing me. I'm in shed loads of pain. I'd love to come to Cornwall. I've always wanted to get there. I can't wait to see you. So it was all arranged. Then I had a phone call saying, oh no, come to Brington. I've got 150 people for you to talk to. So that took us away from Cornwall that weekend. Brington, we managed to have a live feed. It was very successful. Anyway, Kelly has again invited us down to Cornwall last weekend. I got down there. We spoke about Kelly. Everyone knows what's happening there. I'm glad to hear some good news coming from you there, Kelly. But I had a message from Gags Morgan saying, oh, do you know about this Frank Live talking in Parliament? I didn't have a clue, which I thought, where's this popped up? I normally know what's going on. So there wasn't much information. I looked into it, found out a little bit, thought I'd be a bit cheeky, send off a cheeky email like I do. And then Byron got wind with me. We're having a look at it. I sent an email. Byron emailed them too. And then we had a reply to Byron asking me to send more information. And I did. And then we had a reply saying, yes, we'd love you and 4 people of WTU to come and join us in Parliament for the conference, which I thought was really nice of Dr. Frank from America to invite us into Parliament. It was a shame no UK people did, but anyway, that's cool. It was an absolute pleasure to meet Dr. Frank. I didn't have enough time to speak with him and hope to speak with him more. So that's how we got in there. Unfortunately, we missed the beginning because the disabled people, that was me, Rocky, Mags, Kelly and Sean, we were taken off to the lift to save us the trouble of going up the stairs. God bless Sophie, she was a lovely lady, and the only good thing about this was we got to see absolutely loads and loads of Parliament, more than most of the British public ever do. It absolutely crippled us, caused loads of pain, and when we got to the room it turned out it was the wrong room, and they'd had a last minute room change, and then we were told we had to walk back to the exact same point we'd started from, and had to go to the lift that was 10 spaces from where we were in the beginning, go up that lift, round the corner in the room where we should have been all along. But we had a lovely walk around Parliament. It's a beautiful building, and although I don't necessarily like many of the people in there at the moment because their policies don't seem to be people focused, I'm glad Guy Fawkes didn't blow it up, because that is a beautiful building. It's full of history, but they don't always operate in the interest of the people, and that's what I thought politicians were supposed to be there for. I had this crazy idea, they're our elected representatives, and they would do what was in our needs and our best interest. Which puzzles me, because I went to see my MP, and unfortunately the chap that was hosting the meeting, forgive me sir, I can't remember your name, I do apologise, I may have been a bit abrupt. I realise now you're the father of the chap who passed away, and you've actually come out to help change the law. So my apologies if I seem abrupt and I thought you were Mr Gray. The reason I said that was because Mr Gray, my MP, threatened to throw me out of his surgery and told me I didn't have any real problems. And that was when I realised they don't all represent us actually, they represent their own selves, many of them. But then I met Tonia Antoniazzi, and I've met Paul Flynn previously, and they've kind of restored a bit of faith in me that there are some good politicians in that building, and they do represent the people, and they do stand for our needs, and it was pretty good. So Tonia Antoniazzi, held this meeting. WTU managed to get in there. Byron, being an able-bodied man, he was right on the corner of the table. Well done, Byron. Prime position. I'd have been there if I could have raced you to it, mate. And everyone had a talk. We had a couple of police officers, one from Durham, I believe. I'm not sure if it was PCC Ron Hogg or not, because unfortunately we all arrived about 10-15 minutes late, so I missed the beginning. No chairs, all having to stand up, holding ourselves up on sticks, but thankfully they got chairs. So that's actually great, actually, because it shows how oversubscribed the meeting was. I don't mean to say it to bring disrepute to Parliament, because they had a full table full of chairs. They didn't anticipate so many people caring so much about this issue, and the room was rammed packed full. They couldn't have really got any more people in there. Next time we need a bigger hall, people, because that little tiny conference room is not adequate for this issue. A lot of people have got to talk. We need more than an hour and a half. We need several hours, in fact, because this is bigger. People weren't able to talk because time was not left. Even Dr. Frank, man, the poor man, right, flown all the way from America, and he was told, I'm sorry, Frank, there's not enough time, and that's the situation, it can't be helped. There's not enough time, I need you to summarise in about 3 sentences if you can. And Dr. Frank was fantastic. He went, I can do it in 1. Cannabis is medicine. And here is the gentleman's book. I haven't had a chance to read it. He donated a copy to us yesterday, so it's only right that I share this with you guys today. In fact, I might be lucky because I might get a second one in the post. So if I do, I'm going to put this out, I don't know, as one of those freebie type things where you share and like and post, and then whatever will get it. But I haven't read it yet, but I look forward to reading that because it looks fantastic. It covers some good ground. The police chiefs were amazing, actually. They were really open. Sorry, they were really open to the discussion. The first officer that spoke, again, I didn't get his name because I wasn't in the room on time. I really applauded him inside. You know, he spoke. It was a parent before a police officer, and that's what these people should be, actually. They should be parents before anything, because we don't know what our kids are going to do. My 16-year-old's about to go out into the big wide world, and it is terrifying. And I hope I've taught her well, and I hope I've given her the knowledge to make good decisions, but I've no way of knowing that. So, anyway, this officer said he was worried about his own children, like, you know, trying drugs. And He'd rather that if they did try drugs, they were as safe as they could be, which is basically what I believe as well. Make it safe. Don't make it criminal, make it safe. So this police officer was good. The second police officer also spoke well, and basically, I think this applies specifically to... Sorry, I'm just rubbing bits of painful parts of my body. Sorry if I keep frowning and moaning and groaning. There's like a de facto decriminalisation going on. Excuse me. Whereby the police know this law is wrong. They believe the politicians should change it. They no longer wish to enforce it. However, they are duty bound because it's down to the politicians to change the law. So until the politicians change the law, the police kind of have to enforce the law. However, the police also have the power of discretion. They also have a duty to protect human rights. Okay? So bursting through my door and taking me out like chainsaw or battering ram, rummaging through my house, violently accosting me to the floor and handcuffing me, chucking me in a van and taking me off to a cell, is that in my human rights interest, or is that in the interest of the welfare of society? Just because I'm using cannabis to improve my life and manage my health and nutrition? Because cannabis is nutrition as well, folks. You should eat the stuff. Eat it raw, man. That's the way it works for you. In fact, Google this, people. I haven't had the time. I saw in a video, GW Pharmaceuticals proved that raw cannabis is 50 times more therapeutic than decarboxylated cannabis. Which means the government's position that raw cannabis has no therapeutic effect has been disproved by their own little pharmaceutical company that is making them hundreds of billions of dollars around the world. But I won't go into that one. Breathe. So we also had 3 doctors in there. They were fantastic, actually. They looked really interested in what Dr. Frank had to say. They were really interested in the personal stories. I wish I'd got a chance to say a bit more of mine. And I'm glad that they're interested rather than dismissive, because it shows that they actually care about people. The doctors, their faces were sort of saying, wow, why haven't we been taught this? Why don't we know this? And that's what their faces were saying. They looked like they really wanted to know more. They want to understand how cannabis helps human health, which is fantastic news. But I beg them to look at it from a dietary point of view and not just from a pharmaceutical point of view. We do not need MHRA to take cannabis under its wing. MHRA, well, they've nearly killed me 4 times with their licence and what do they call it? Licensed and regulated. And there's something else, but they've approved it. They've approved those drugs that have nearly killed me. And if I put a list of those drugs up and said who's had severe side effects from these, there'd be loads of people. So I'm not the only one. It's a widespread problem. So I'm making the choice, actually, in my personal circumstances, everybody. I'm choosing cannabis. This isn't a cannabis plant, by the way. This is a black mint from Kelly O'Neill. I'll tell you more about this in a minute. I'm choosing cannabis, right, because it's non-toxic, it's a natural plant that's grown with humans, and alcohol kills me. Pharmaceuticals have nearly killed me with a brain hemorrhage, a mini stroke, 2 cancer scares. Terrifying, my family was terrified. So I choose a natural plant to manage my health and nutrition rather than the dictated recreational toxic drug alcohol or pharmaceutical drugs, which are also dictated by law. So that's what I'm fighting for everyone who wants to choose cannabis, to be able to choose cannabis. Those doctors were dead interested. Also, we had Callie there, who told a wonderful story. I mean, I applaud this woman. I hear as much good and bad about everybody, all these different names that we heard, as much good and bad. I met Callie yesterday, and Callie seemed absolutely genuinely beautiful and a lovely soul to me. And what she's done for her son and all the family that she's helped is so brave, courageous, and as she said in that meeting, if she didn't act righteously for these people, to help them in whatever capacity she has the knowledge to do, she'd be a monster. She'd be a cold-blooded monster. She really would. And, you know, I only know what was said in that room. I don't know anything more. But from what she's saying, she's actually like a hero. She's going out and doing great, noble things at her own personal risk, as are other people. You know, we are all doing it when we're managing it for ourselves. I'm doing it at personal risk. I could be evicted. I could be imprisoned. I could have my kids taken off me. Thankfully, I've been open with all the services, and so far they can see that I'm actually a good dad. I'm a good person. I don't deserve to go to prison. My kids shouldn't be took off me. MHRA, funded by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, that is a coincidence. I wonder why. Who else? Oh, we've got other people in the farm. Oh, shit, it's like our whole government, or several members, or maybe the ones that are just saying no, cannabis shouldn't be decriminalised, no, cannabis should stay in Schedule 1 or 2. Maybe they're just the corrupt ones, because anyone who knows anything about cannabis in the slightest, with the slightest bit of research, now if I can learn it, anyone can learn it. Internet, YouTube, Google, it's all there. Why can't they learn it? If they know that all you see is the truth about cannabis, and you'll instantly know it shouldn't be in any schedule. It should not be in 1, 2, 3, 4.2 at a push. It should be in Schedule 5. That's where it should be. Schedule 5. Because it is a benign product. It is helpful and healthy to human health. And yes, there is potential for abuse. Yes, one in maybe several thousands of people might have a mental episode on it. But at the minute, completely unregulated, it's completely dangerous because it's not organic, mainly. You know, people should have organic cannabis. That is when it is majorly nutritious. So we also had JJ. Vera was there. What a moving story, Vera. It was so glad to meet you on the green afterwards and be able to have a little brief private moment with you and a quick hug. And Danielle as well, who's supporting the people from Greenfell Towers. You're an amazing soul, and it was an absolute pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to meeting you people all again. I met Mike Wise, brilliant chap. It was a very interesting time, gave me some good info about how to make your own FICO. That's good, good info how to make your own FICO. It doesn't matter what solvent you use. Obviously, if it's flammable, you need to do it in a well-ventilated area with no naked flames. And you have to basically keep it on the heat, evaporating until there's no bubbles left. And it was once all the bubbles have stopped, that's when all of the solvent will have evaporated. And he says as you get very low, a couple of spots of water, wait till all the bubbles have gone. Once all the bubbles have stopped, you've then got your full FICO cannabis oil that anyone can make, really. If you've got good ventilation, that's crucial because it's highly explosive without good ventilation. So we don't actually need these people governing and dictating our lives. Those that are physically and mentally able, they should be free and able to do so. Those that need a pharmacy should be free and able to do so. You know, I don't see what the big problem is. Greg was there from Cannabis Social Club. He put a great talk out. And there's actually about 160 UK cannabis social clubs in the UK already. So obviously very much supporting Grow Your Own. I'm thoroughly supporting Grow Your Own. So if anybody wants to make another cannabis social club, they should look for Greg on the CSSK website. If you Google it, you'll find it, no doubt. And get some more information about how to do that, because we have the right to free association as human beings. You know, funnily enough, we have the right to peacefully practice our own beliefs. In private and in public, actually, so long as we're not causing disturbance or harm to others. So exercise that human right, people. Now, Rocky was also there, our Rocky van der Benderscum. I'm so glad you made it. It hurt you like crazy, especially with the extra traipsing. But you got to see a bit more of Parliament, which is great news. Now, I loved what you put up, Rocky. I'd like it if you could make a way to share this so everybody else could read it also, please. Rocky found the original bit of legislation through his diggings that put cannabis in the Misuse of Drugs Act. I can't remember the exact year. It was difficult to hear because of the room. But basically, cannabis was based under the Dangerous Drugs Act and in the Misuse of Drugs Act on the premise that it is dangerous and harmful to human health. They actually did this based on... let me just find my notes, sorry. Synthesized cannabis, which we all know is fucking poisonous. Sorry, we all know is poisonous. That's why none of us want synthesized cannabis. We don't want that. We want natural cannabis, herbal cannabis, organic cannabis. Perhaps in a tincture form, perhaps in a salve, perhaps in something to consume, like an medible. But we don't want synthesized cannabis. No way. Shove it, to be honest. So what he found out was it's not real cannabis that's in there, it's only synthetic cannabis. So actually real cannabis isn't even in the Misuse of Drugs Act if you think about it. And that is probably because it's actually a benign plant. It's co-evolved with humanity. We have used it throughout our existence. Many who believe in our good God, or any God whatsoever, would say it's a God-given plant. Okay? Genesis 1:29 would confirm this, everyone, for those that believe. For those that don't, we don't even need a government to tell us what we can and can't do with our own bodies. As long as you're not hurting anybody, Where is the problem? Till you're harming somebody, there shouldn't be a problem. They should be protecting us through regulation, not dictating to us our mind states that we're allowed to get. You're only allowed to relax with a poison? What? Anyway, I digress. So Rocky pointed this out, and thankfully one of the police officers took notes and had a word afterwards. So hopefully he'll have a look into it. Because time was pressing, I had to be quite forthright in making sure I got a sentence or two in. Byron might say I was rude. I'm sorry, Byron, but I had to finish my sentence. Okay, so I managed to stand up and just introduce myself, Phil Monk, WTU. I managed to say that I'd been writing to politicians now for 4 years in my pursuit, what originally started actually as cannabis for medicine. And then during my journey I started to realise it was cannabis as a herbal health remedy. And then in my last 3 weeks I've literally it's not my epiphany, because other people, Dr. William Courtney I think quoted it actually, cannabis is not a medicine, it is an essential nutrient. So I managed to stand up and say, all the politicians wrote back to me and said cannabis isn't therapeutic and it's not a medicine. And I actually stood there and said, yeah, they're right, it's not a medicine. It is essential nutrition. I can't bang on about this enough. We should have the right and the freedom to have our own plants, like I could my lettuce, my cabbage, my tomatoes, that all give me nutrition. Go out there, pick a fresh stalk of cannabis, like this actually, that could just be it. Yeah, that could be it's not cannabis, it's, just so you can actually confirm, it's black mint, Peruvian black mint. Thank you, Kelly O'Neill. See, Kelly O'Neill is a lunar herbalist, right? She grows her own herbs to heal herself and her daughters. If she grew cannabis, they could potentially put her in jail for 14 years, like they threatened to put me in jail for 14 years. But why? Why? On what grounds should we go to prison for growing a plant, consuming it, put that in a juicer in the morning, right? GW approved this. Put that in your juicer in the morning, have a little juicy, 1 a day, that'll keep the doctor away, folks. Maintain your homeostasis with raw organic cannabis. And then if you want to get high and have a good time, use it and smoke it. Decarboxylate it, eat it, take it in an oil. Because being high is 1,000,000 times better than being pissed. You know, I sat somewhere opposite, there was an alcohol party and there's a cannabis party, and we all sat up until various similar times, but everyone that was at the cannabis party, they all stood up compos mentis, able to function, coherent, able to walk off, some even able to go off and drive. You know, because cannabis doesn't actually impair you like they say it does. Can do. If you eat too much, it can knock you on your arse and you won't get up for a week. Shouldn't kill you though, as Dr. Frank pointed out yesterday. Is it £30 in 20 minutes, I think he said? £15 in 20 minutes? Shitload of cannabis, it's impossible. So I said that the MHRA drugs have nearly killed me 4 times. I don't need MHRA, I only need me. I can look after me. I have the knowledge, I have the capacity. All I need is the freedom. And who are they to deny me this freedom? And on what basis? Cannabis is bad for human health? We know that's not true now, ladies and gentlemen. And I finished off, and this is where I was rude, because the gentleman, he was pressed for time and he was wanting others to speak, and he did try to interrupt me several times, but I believe it's polite to let someone finish their sentence first before you cut them off. So I finished my sentence. And that was, everyone should have the right to grow cannabis. The right to grow your own is an essential factor of here. And I have to apologise because I forgot to say no to Schedule 2. We should say no to Schedule 2. Anyone who knows anything about cannabis should say no to Schedule 2. If they're not saying no to Schedule 2, they're in Big Pharma's pocket. That's all I'll say on the matter. Anyone screaming for Schedule 2 who knows the truth about cannabis, who has researched, I mean, even Frank, right, afterwards when the meeting finished, because I was stood right behind Frank, and I apologise, Frank, because you're sat in front of me, saying cannabis is medicine, and little old Phil Monk, who's just a little, like, English language Spanish teacher, who happens to have read 4 years extensive academic research on cannabis, because that's where I'm a good reader, stands up and says, no, it's not medicine, it's nutrition. I'm not saying you're wrong, Dr. Frank, and you have my fullest respect, you really do, I'm dying to read your book. But I'd ask you now to consider it through the lens of nutrition. Because medicine is a thing that we use once we're poorly. Nutrition prevents us getting poorly. Hippocrates, I think it was, let your food be your medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. Okay? Cannabis is thy medicine and thy food, people. We need to start telling everyone that. Because cannabis isn't medicine, it's food. Essential nutrients. Take out oranges from people's health, right? You get scurvy. You get scurvy. Something else gives you rickets. If you take all the brassicas out of your diet, which is your cauliflower, your beetroot, your broccoli, your cabbages, you get chronic fatigue. You get anemia. It's a B12 and an iron deficiency. It's a deficiency that looks like a disease. All these things are likely deficiencies, people, cannabinoid deficiencies, because prior to Prohibition, cannabinoid or hemp, cannabis, marijuana, ganja, it used to be fed to all the animals, actually, it was everywhere, and cannabinoids were all in our diet, so we all got to eat cannabinoids, not ours, because we weren't alive then, but our ancestors. So the disease levels were much lower. And then suddenly cannabis, for some reason political, was taken out of the food chain, out of human diet completely. And now, is it, 70 years later? We're all fucking dying like flies and full of disease. And Big Pharma's the only thing that can help us, but it's not, it's killing us. No disrespect, sometimes pharmacy has its place and it can be life-saving. But for long-term chronic conditions, it creates problems. And then they have to give you more drugs. Was it polyprescribing? Give you more drugs for the side effects, and then more drugs for the side effects of the side effects drugs, until you're nearly dead in hospital or eventually dead. So I have a big issue with that. Bear with me a moment. I'm just trying to get my notes together because I've rambled. I'm going to finish that. Something very urgent. I've had the privilege of becoming acquainted with Karen Gray. I've met Kelly O'Neill, who, I love like a sister. What a wonderful light being she is, pure soul. And Steve, her good man, rock of solid rock, that man. And Keris, their younger daughter, and Danielle, who we're all aware of because she's in the media, and her story is heartbreaking. In fact, everyone's story is heartbreaking. I don't think we should have to be on the edge of death before they consider giving us cannabis. Yeah, I know Sativex is Schedule 4. Interesting, Sativex is skunk. Skunk is Sativex. I could make Sativex in my kitchen without the peppermint and the alcohol if I just went and got some skunk. Obviously I wouldn't know if it was organically grown, and that's what the difference is between medicinal cannabis and recreational cannabis, ladies and gentlemen. It's the conditions of growth. If you go into GWs, they might invite me in for a meeting actually, that would be dead interesting to see your grow GW. I suspect, but I don't know, it is going to be supreme standard, clinical, hygiene, not a hair nets, clothing, vacuum seals, hermetically sealed, organically grown, thoroughly flushed, cured and dried, properly grown cannabis, yeah? Which the average grower can't do because they haven't got all those things. I've never seen like one of these illegal commercial grows. I've no idea what they get like, but I know when I get my bud off the street and look at it in a magnifying glass, I find hairs. Human hairs, dog hairs, who knows? And that's because it's not grown in that medical condition. It's not clinically grown. But it's not to say people can't grow it clinically. All you need to do is have good growing practices and make sure you grow cleanly, and then you'll be able to do it, I presume. So it's about practices. So everyone should have the right to grow. We don't need the farmers to do it. Karen Gray, you should have your cannabis oil immediately for Murray. I'm going to do what Paul Flynn did, my lovely, right? I don't often do this. I do love swearing. I don't do it in public. I think swearing's great. Fuck the law here, love. Go out, get yourself some cannabis oil. There'll be someone out there that can test it for him, and they will be, right? You just need to put the feeders out and ask anyone to contact you. The community will come forth, my lovely, and get you some oil for your boy, so he doesn't have to have those horrific seizures because they won't change their corrupt law. Now, I don't tell people to break laws often, but forgive me, but your boy could die. And if he dies, that's the Home Office's fault. That's Theresa May's fault, actually, because she refuses to change the law. Why does she refuse to change the law? Who does hubby work in? Who's making lots of money off medicinal cannabis? Anyway, to break the law now, love, because the police have said they are de facto no longer enforcing this law. So you grow your cannabis for your boy. You get your cannabis from the cannabis community. Some will provide it, I'm sure. And ask them, you need it testing because it's got to be good for your boy. You need to know what your ratios are. And hopefully you can maybe take knowledge from Billy Caldwell's situation and ask someone. Someone will be able to provide that for you. I have no doubt about this, because there are a lot of compassionate caregivers out there, benevolent people putting themselves at risk by this law for corrupt politicians while they fill their pockets off medicinal cannabis, fucking makes me sick, man. So, Karen, please put the feelers out. Kelly, I hope Danielle's getting every